So in the last class, if I remember correctly, we did complete up to SynScan and UDP scan. We have seen how to perform Nmap scans earlier. Today's session will be going with a few more scan types. Okay. I think Wahab, you weren't there earlier yesterday. Uh, Hello, Wahab, can you hear me? Yes. Hi, Wahab. I'll share the recording, Wahab. I think you haven't received the recording yet. So I'll be sharing the recording for the yesterday's session. So today it might seem a bit confusing because you haven't gotten the recording yet. But once you go through it, it might make much more sense. Okay. So yeah, in the meanwhile, as mentioned, guys, let's start with the upcoming scan types. But before that, a few introductions to what Nmap is. As mentioned earlier, this is a tool which we're going to be using to perform scan on multiple other systems to figure out what ports are open on them or what other piece of information can we get from them. Okay. Now, before we perform the Nmap scan, we did start up a small setup. We set up a few virtual machines in our network. Okay, so we have the Kali virtual machine anyhow, and then we install Windows 7 and Metasploitable as well. Again, in order to install them, it's pretty simple. I've shared the files to you yesterday. All you have to do is extract those files and open the VMX file. So these are the files which I shared. So once you get this zip file, you right click on them, click on show more options, click on 7-zip and click on extract to so and so file name. Once extracted, you would have a folder within which you would find one more zip file. Right click on that zip file again, show more options, 7-zip and extract to Metasploitable again. With that, you will find a VMX file within it. Double click the VMX file and that opens up the Metasploitable system here. Now, this is an intentionally vulnerable operating system specifically built for penetration testing. We can perform our practicals of scanning or pen testing on it. Okay. And the default credentials are mentioned here itself, msfadmin / msfadmin. So username is msfadmin here, and password is also msfadmin. But when you type the password, it will not be visible for security reasons. Type the correct password and hit enter. And all you need is this machine to stay active so that you can perform your scanning practicals on it. So right now, this machine is getting the IP 192.168.0.8. Similarly, Windows 7 as well. So again, same procedure, no difference at all. You will have a zip file. Right click on that file, click on show more options, click on 7-zip and click on extract. You'll get a zip, again, a folder with a zip file again. Extract that again to get this folder and then open the VMX file. And that opens the virtual machine for you. Okay. This will not have any password by default. You can create one later on. And again, all you need to do is keep the system up and running. That's it. So once you have all these devices active and running, on those devices now we can perform the Nmap scans. So right now, if I log into my Kali system as well, this machine is getting the IP of 192.168.0.7. So this is 0.7, Metasploitable is 0.8, and Windows is 0.9, all of them in the same network. Okay. Now I can perform various sorts of scans in my Kali system. So the first scan we learned yesterday was the ping scan, basically to figure out what all devices are active in my network. Okay, so it is also commonly known as host discovery. So if I type nmap -sn for ping scan and the entire range of IPs, 192.168.0.1 to 255. So it scans all the IPs and tells you which devices are active and which are not. So when I hit enter, you can see it shows all the other active devices in my network, and even 0.8 and 0.9 are shown. 0.8 is my virtual machine running on VM Metasploitable, and 0.9 is my Windows 7 virtual machine. Okay. Now, when I want to perform a TCP scan to figure out what TCP ports are open on it, I can run nmap -s capital T for TCP scan. And when I specify the IP here, sorry, just a second. Nmap -s capital T for TCP scan and the target IP 0.8, let's say. And if I hit enter, this performs a TCP scan and tells me on the target system what TCP ports are open or active. Okay. So these were a few scans which we learned in the last class. I'll be sharing the recording for that. So which I've elaborated a lot more on these scan types. Okay. Today we have to start with the next scan type, which is -PN, the port scan without ping. So this -pn scan is to perform a TCP scan itself, but it performs it without pinging the target first. So sometimes when you ping the target, your ping packets get blocked by a firewall. So in order to bypass that firewall, we don't ping the target first. We directly start scanning for the packets or the ports by sending these packets. Okay. And for that, you have the option -pn, uppercase PN. So you can go back to your terminal. And in your terminal, now you can type nmap -P. And this is ping scan. I mean, no ping scan, but still get you the TCP port information. And now when I specify the IP here, 192.168.0.8, it gets you the same information. As you can see, same TCP port information. But here, it doesn't perform the ping scan first. As mentioned, if your ping packets are getting blocked by the firewall, in order to bypass that firewall, you can run the scan without ping. Okay, so it just directly sends the SYN flags and shows you if the ports are open or not. Okay. Moving forward, there's the version scan. After this, again, a very important scan type to give you version details of every service run. So if you notice over here, these are all the services running on the target system. FTP service, SSH service, Telnet service, SMTP service, etc. Now, if you want to figure out what services are running with what exact version of that service, we can run the version scan for that. So you can type nmap -s capital V for version scan and the target IP 192.168.0.8. And now when I hit enter, this will take a while because it needs to fetch the version details of every scan, I mean, every service running on the target. And here are the results. So as you can notice, it tells me now exactly what service is running on what exact version detail. So FTP here is running on VSFTPD 2.3.4. SSH is running on OpenSSH 4.7. Telnet is running on Linux Telnet default. Okay, DNS is running on ISC 9.4.2. Web server HTTP is running on Apache 2.2.8. So it gives me the version details of every exact service running on the target. And this is quite helpful for you when you perform penetration testing. So if you want to figure out if any of these services contain a vulnerability, we can try to verify that on the websites like ExploitDB or CVDetails. So if you remember, in the information gathering class, we talked about these websites, CVDetails or ExploitDB. So when I search for the same exact version, VSFTPD, and if I search for exploits, you can notice I've got some websites here, ExploitDB, CVDetails, etc. So now this website tells me that there is an exploit available for this to attack on it. So again, hackers can use this exploit to get a complete remote connection, a backdoor command execution connection. Okay. So using this now, hackers can remotely execute any command of their choice, okay, using a backdoor. So in the upcoming sessions, we're going to learn how do we perform this, okay? How do we use this exploit and how do we attack the target system on this certain vulnerability that exists on this exact service, okay? So the version scan allows you to check for such vulnerabilities or exploits available because it gives you the exact version details of every service running on the system. And we can manually search for every service online and figure out which system or which service contains what loopholes. Okay, so that's what version scan is for, to give you version detection information. Okay. Moving forward now, there are 4 scan types: ACK scan, FIN scan, Xmas scan, and null scan. So these scan types are not used practically much, guys, but a lot of questions regarding these are asked in interviews or in CH certification exams as well. So these 4 scan types, ACK scan, FIN scan, Xmas scan, and null scan, are not for port detection. They're only for detection of the firewall, if the target system contains a firewall or not. Okay. And in each of these scan types, it sends a unique flag to figure that out. So firstly, when we talk about the ACK scan here, what happens in ACK scan is, so we show this with a diagram, just a second. So by default in any Nmap scan, it always sends the SYN flag first. We talked about the TCP flags, if you remember, guys, in the earlier sessions. Whenever there's an attacker here and a victim here, and if Nmap wants to figure out what ports are open on the target system, on those ports, your Nmap always sends a SYN flag first, SYN. For that SYN flag, if the port is open, in return, it sends a SYN-ACK, SYN-ACK. So this is the default scenario in every Nmap scan. Okay. But when you talk about these other scan types, ACK scan, FIN scan, etc., it doesn't send the SYN flag first. So it sends a different flag altogether. Okay. So in the ACK scan over here, it is used to determine if the target is protected by a firewall or not by sending an ACK flag. Okay. So rather than sending SYN first, it directly sends an ACK flag or an ACK flag. Now, ACK flags are usually used in the end of the connection. So to reciprocate or to confirm the previous flag, you send the ACK flag. Now, when an ACK flag is sent first directly without a SYN flag, that causes some issues on the target system. So if the target system has a firewall, so if it does have a firewall, that firewall does not know how to respond to that ACK. So the target system might not respond at all in case of a firewall. But if there is no firewall, that flag sends a reset back. So in return, you get an RST flag back if the port is open or closed. Doesn't matter what the state is. If there is no firewall, it always sends back a reset back. So it says, I did not request for any ACK flag. Why are you sending me one? So I'm going to reject this. So it sends a reset back if the port is open or closed. But if there's a firewall, you don't get any reset back. It just doesn't respond at all. So that's the main important point to note here. Okay. So it doesn't help in determining if the port is open or closed because both of them send a reset back. Okay. If the port is filtered, you get a no response at all. Okay, so that's the difference or the purpose of ACK scan. Okay, so if I run this practically as well, if I type nmap -s capital A for ACK scan, and if I give the target IP here 0.8, and if I hit enter, it doesn't provide me any port information. It just tells me the 1,000 ports are unfiltered. Unfiltered in the sense there's no filtration, there's no firewall. And you can see there's a reset flag back. Okay. Whether the ports are open or closed, both of them send you a reset itself. Okay. And if it shows no response over here, then it shows that there's a firewall present. Okay. So determining that factor, you can whether the system has a firewall or not. Okay. Moving on to the next scan type, there's FinScan. Now, from the name itself, we can figure out in FinScan, it directly sends a fin flag first. Okay. Here, the scenario is a bit different. Okay. If you get a reset back, it means the port is closed. And if you get no response, it means the port could be open. Okay. So if it has a firewall or if it is, again, sending a reset back, the port will always be shown as closed itself. Okay. So if I go back to my terminal here, if I type nmap -s capital F for FinScan, and if I give the target IP, and if I hit enter, you can see all these ports now. Now it gives us port information, and you can see you're getting a reset back. Okay, so it could be closed or it could be filtered. It's still not giving me correct information here, if you notice. Okay, but shows you that they could be protected by a firewall, but the ports are at least open. Okay, so this is about FinScan. Similarly, there's one more scan type called null scan, nmap -s capital N for null scan. In null scan, it doesn't send any flag at all, guys. Okay, it just sends a random binary data. And you can see, it gives you the same information like FinScan. Okay. And finally, you have Xmas scan, nmap -s capital X for Xmas scan, and the target IP. Same exact results like the earlier one. Okay. So again, your ACK scan is the only one which is quite different, guys. Other than that, Fin, Xmas, and null scan, all of these work the same exact way. Okay. If the port is closed, you get a reset. If you get no response, it means the port could be open. Okay. Same exact results for all the three scans. But when you talk about Xmas scan, this is one unique scan because it sends all three flags at once. Fin, push, and urge. Okay. So if I go back to my diagram here, the reason why it is called as Xmas scan is because first it sends a fin flag, FIN. Then it sends fin and push, fin plus push. And then it sends fin, push, and urge together. Fin plus push plus urge together. Okay. And since it sends all of these flags at once, it generates a lot of red colored alerts. Again, whenever there's a red, it means that's an alert, that's something malicious. And this looks like a triangular tree for you. Hence the name Xmas. I know it sounds a bit weird, but that is how it got its name actually. That's the history of the name, frankly speaking. Okay. The reason why it is called Xmas scan is because it looks like a Christmas tree. And since it pops up a lot of red colored alerts due to all these flags, okay, these many flags and all, hence the name Xmas scan. Okay. So again, this is a question asked in interviews as well. What is the only scan type that uses three flags, fin, push, and urge together? Xmas scan is the only scan which does that. There's no other scan which sends three flags at once. Okay. Is that clear, everyone? Charles, Ben, Vamsi, Wahab. Again, guys, as mentioned, for people who have not been in the last class, this might seem a bit confusing because you've not had an introduction to Nmap. So I'm going to share the recordings to you. And once you go through those, it might seem a bit more simpler to understand. But for now, Charles, I think you've been there in the last session. Vamsi, you've been there in the last session. Any questions or doubts up to this point? Okay. Charles, any questions on your end? Okay. Now, moving forward, these are all the scan types, guys. But as mentioned, there's a few options to cover as well. So we'll cover those some of those options in today's class. So again, a quick summary on all the scan types we learned in the class yesterday and today. SN for host discovery, SS for TCP port discovery, stealthily, ST for TCP port discovery in a logged manner. It performs the TCP three-way handshake. SA, ACK scan, sends for firewall detection using ACK flag. SF also for firewall detection, but with fin flag. SX for firewall detection also, but with fin push and urge flag. SN also for firewall detection, but with no flag. Okay, null scan. Okay. SU is for UDP port discovery. PN for TCP port discovery, but without ping. And SV for version scan. So these are all the scan types we learned in the class yesterday and today. Okay. Moving forward now. Now we have Nmap options as well. Okay, so each of these options is to give you some extra information on that. Oh yeah, go ahead, Charles. We get the IP address information from information gathering, Charles. So in the information gathering phase, we try to have received the IPs and all. On those IPs, you perform scanning with Nmap and Kali. So what you are doing right now is from those IPs. Exactly. Exactly. Again, unless and until you have the IP, you wouldn't know what system to scan. So first you get the IP from information gathering, and that IP is utilized in the scanning phase to get extra info, port information, service information, etc. Okay. So right now, as mentioned, we're using Nmap over here to get that extra information on those IPs. Okay. So now when you talk about options in Nmap, now these are for extra information or to modify the scan according to your choice. Okay. So the first option we're going to learn today is the capital O option. It stands for OS enumeration. So to give you the operating system details on the target system, we can run the capital O option. For example, let's say I wanted to figure out what the operating system is for my 0.8 machine. So my 0.8 is Metasploitable. I know that it's a Linux system. But if I wanted its exact operating system details, I can run any scan here, SX for synscan. I can specify the IP address. And in the end now, if I add an option here, hyphen capital O, now this capital O option gives me operating system information. So when I hit enter, first it performs a synscan, gives me the port information first, what ports are open. And in the end now here, you can see operating system details. So it says the target is running a Linux operating system between the version of the kernel 2.6.9 and 2.6.33. Just to verify this, we can run a command in Metasploitable. Can anyone let me know what the command is, guys, to get the operating system info for a Linux target? How do we get OS information? What's the command for that? We learned it in the Linux commands class. Yes, correct, Ben. It's uname. So if I type uname space hyphen A, this gives me the operating system information. As you can see, it says Linux Metasploitable 2.6.24. Okay. And if you notice, it's pretty accurate. Falls between 2.6.9 and 3.3. Okay. So it gives me a range here, but definitely the information is quite correct. It falls between that range itself. It was 2.6.24, which falls between 9 and 3.3. Okay. And from this OS information as well, we can start finding for vulnerabilities, looking for vulnerabilities online. If any of these versions of the OS contain any loopholes, we can attack on that. Okay. So we'll learn how to attack that in the upcoming sessions anyhow. Okay. But for now, to get that information, we are using this hyphen capital O option for operating system. Similarly, when we run this on a Windows system, so if I type nmap, same scan type, but for a different IP, 0.9, which is my Windows 7 here. So when I run it on this machine here, when I hit enter, let's see what info we get. So first it needs to give us the port information, what ports are open and what are not. And then it gives us the operating system information. So these are the open ports over here. And then it says operating system details is running Windows 2007, Windows 7 or Windows 2008 or Windows 8.1. Still not accurate though, but it gives you information that it is first preference is given to Windows 7. Okay. And that is my machine. This is Windows 7. Okay. So that operating system information can be obtained from the capital O option. Okay. There are ways to get much more accurate or pinpoint information as well, but we'll cover that in the upcoming sessions. Okay. Moving forward, after uppercase O, there is lowercase o. That's for output file. So everything is case sensitive in Linux guys. So uppercase O serves a completely different purpose, and lowercase o serves altogether a different purpose. Okay. So lowercase o here is to export the output to a certain file. For example, if I run an nmap scan here, let's say nmap hyphen s capital V for version scan, and if I specify the target IP, and let's say now, rather than getting the output on the terminal, and which is temporary, if I want to store the output permanently in a certain file, I can export it with the hyphen O option. So I can give hyphen lowercase o, and I can specify a file name here, /root /desktop. And let's say I specify a file name called nmap underscore version underscore scan.txt. And now when I hit enter, you can see it generates a file here with the same name on my desktop. And once the scan is complete, that same exact output here in the terminal should be exported to this file as well. So I've got the output here. And if I open this file up, that file shows the exact same output, if you notice. Okay. So this is basically your version scan. Okay. Whatever is shown here in the nmap terminal, that same exact data is exported here in the notepad file. Okay. So output, as mentioned, hyphen O is to export nmap's output to a file of your choice. Okay. Again, please note, capital O is for operating system information, lowercase o is for output file. Everything in Linux is case sensitive. So again, even though it's the same alphabet, the different case will give you different output altogether. Okay. So again, we'll cover the other options as well, guys. But again, as mentioned, today's class might seem a bit confusing for a lot of students. So let me share the recordings first, and then we'll proceed further on from here. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Nothing further for our session today. We can exit the session here. Charles, I think you've mentioned that you've got some error regarding the download of the files. You can share your screen. I'll try to figure out. Yeah. Yeah, you can share it now. That's not an issue. I can make you the present. Sure. Sure. No worries. Sure. Others, any questions? Wahab, any questions? Ben, any questions? Wamsi. Sure, Ben, I'll share all the notes to you. Definitely. And I think you're getting the recordings anyhow from the institute directly on your Google Drive. You can access the recordings from there. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Others, Wahab, Vamsi, Ben, if you have any questions, you can say. If not, you can exit the session. Nothing further for our class today. I'm going to share the recordings to you shortly. And yeah, you can go through them and ask me if you have any questions.